The good news is that my most autistic child is having a great time. And you get to enjoy it with me, probably for as long as we broadcast tonight, and then afterwards, probably all night after that. So, this is Hellfire Agency, a mission of the Church of Korihor. We're doing fine. Unlike NASA, which is currently on a currently, yeah, not well. Let's start the show.
From empty pews to reasoned thought, we'll defend our pale blue dot. If the danger's great, but the odds are small, we Korihors will heed the call. True saviors, but not from sin. We have no hope but what's within. We were not born to be heroes. Our chances small, but never zero. Non-zero chance. Take to the sky against all odds. We will fly. Count us down. Our last advance. This is our non-zero chance. Fueled by hope, reach for the stars. Prometheus fire within our hearts. Though we may be the unlikely crew, in one another our trust renews. Non-zero chance. Take to the sky against all odds. We will fly. Count us down. Our last advance. This is our non-zero
Very cool. Very cool. I want to show you a picture. You okay, JoJo? JoJo's currently operating on 3,000% adrenaline. I'm not really sure how that happened. But yeah, it's a joyful sound, but it means that my usual closed door on air policy is no longer enforceable. So we would like to welcome our guest, JoJo. He's also known as Joby One Kenobi or Jojo Baggins, Jobo Baggins. He's our mascot, our little autistic mascot. He is a beautiful person, beautiful child. He has no idea what high frequency sounds do to an adult person's brain, but okay. Anyways, hi. So I want to tell you about this picture here. So if you look at this photo taken at NASA's Ames Honor Awards event, Joseph Paul, that's enough, buddy. Go watch Ponyo. Hey, go watch Ponyo. Ponyo and Sosuke get lonely. Go on. All right. and NASA Ames Honor Awards event held on August 27th, 2025. Now, let me introduce you to this person you'll see here with the fun t shirt, not so fun t shirt. This is Catherine Fisher, a molecular biologist at NASA ARC, who recently wrote on LinkedIn as follows. It is bittersweet to share that I was awarded the Exceptional Public Achievement Medal at the NASA Honor Awards. I recently appreciate, oh, excuse me, I really appreciate the nomination and the honor of this individual award. I was laid off in May due to budget issues, and this award recognizes the achievements I made on the Space Algae 2 flight experiment. I hope to return to NASA one day, and my heart goes out to the others in my shoes. And I just think about that for a moment, what it must be like to have this dream job where you are basically working for the world's premier space agency, and to be informed that you, due to budget cuts, are not technically laid off in the in government positions. A layoff is known as an RIF, a reduction in force. Usually, that requires a whole bunch of red tape and paperwork. It's extremely difficult to make happen because, of course, these budgets are decided, years in advance, and the missions are put into place, and the initiatives are. It makes it very difficult to actually just lay people off, especially considering that all of these people, beg your pardon, all these people are represented by government unions, labor unions. So the much easier thing to do is to convince them to quit. And one of the ways that the Trump administration has been doing that is by announcing basically that they expect a certain number of people to quit, claiming that they're going to give them various incentives and so on and so forth, but that they're going to have to start cutting back on budgets, basically with an open-handed threat that if you don't leave, something at NASA may have to get canceled. And so if you're basically guilting people that if you stay at NASA, you are hurting the company mission. Never mind the fact that if there isn't enough personnel to fulfill NASA's missions, then what do we have the missions for? How do you continue with the missions? But now that Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, is moonlighting as the administrator of NASA, well, that's what makes logical sense in the new world that we live in. So basically, at this point, at least 4,000 agency employees have chosen to accept the Trump administration's deferred resignation option, reducing the agency's workforce by more than 20%. That was as of July. A big piece of the workforce that are leaving are GS-13 to GS-15 employees. So those are your senior technical or managerial roles via early retirements, buyouts, or voluntary departures. In other words, if you make more money than most people at NASA because you have more experience and you have more time and therefore are making a higher end salary, you're among the first people who are expected to just go ahead and quit, so that the fresher, younger, newer people who need a job, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage, to pay their student loans, can hopefully keep their job. So that's where we are. Around 2,145 senior staff were set to leave as of the middle of this year. There's some key closing. There's a closing of several key offices and eliminating of positions. NASA has to shut down particular offices, estimated positions, and roles. For example, the Office of the Chief Scientist, terminated. The Office of Technology, Policy, and Strategy, closed. That, by the way, as I understand it, is the office we talked about in another episode of Non-Zero Chance, where we talked about how they actually had a woman. There's a woman who wrote the paper that Sean Duffy very apparently used for his new space race initiative to put a nuclear reactor on the moon. That woman was the person who formerly held this position at NASA, where basically her job was figuring out what makes the fleshy, fatty meat sacks inside people's skulls decide that there's something sciency that they should fund at NASA. And she apparently was very good at it. The woman who was in that position before, who knows who's in that position now, it doesn't matter because it's being canceled. The DEIA branch, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, is being dismantled. I suppose there's no surprise there. There's a proposed 25% budget cut for NASA in fiscal year 2026, which would involve eliminating, in the end, over 5,000 positions. So these cuts are consistent with broader federal workforce reduction goals under what's being called the Department of Government Efficiency, even though, I mean, supposedly that's not even really a thing anymore. Well, lo and behold, they're still doing it. So, what's been really frustrating about this week is that just yesterday, that is Thursday, the 18th of September, this email apparently went out to all of NASA's employees. And it's from the Office of Chief Human Capital Officer to all union members. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, is basically everybody at NASA. The subject line reads, changes to union status and activity at NASA. This HR message is being delivered to you via Hermes on behalf of Office of the Chief Human Capital Officer. Hello, NASA employee. In compliance with Executive Order 14343, titled Further Exclusions from the Federal Labor Management Relations Program, which excludes NASA from the Federal Service Labor Management Statute, NASA no longer recognizes labor unions and their associated collective bargaining agreements as exclusive representatives of NASA employees and is ceasing and withdrawing from any current negotiations with labor unions. On September 11th, NASA formally notified the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers and the American Federation of Government Employees of NASA's intention to fully implement EO 14343. These changes impact you as a former bargaining unit employee. Isn't that a nice way to say a thing? This affects you as a person who used to be union. I bet you thought you were a union man. Guess what? You're not. You are a scab in your own job as of now. NASA will no longer collect union dues on behalf of any labor union. So, what's up, bud? Up. If you... Hello? What can I do for you? What is it? Those of you who don't know, I've been single parenting for about a year now. I live with a partner who is also a parent to the same children, but I've been single parenting for about a year now. If you have union dues automatically deducted, effective this pay period, they will not be deducted from your paycheck. Please review your leave and earnings statement to ensure you are aware of the changes to your deductions. Louder Ponyo is fine. I like Ponyo. Play it as loud as you want. Boy loves Ponyo. So skinny. Ponyo. He is adorable. It is very late. Bargaining unit status codes on your SF50 will be changed to 8888. Ineligible for inclusion in a bargaining unit. This means basically, okay, so this is where it all comes down to. This is the rubber meets the road. So the government has certain classifications of employees that basically, paradoxical as it may seem, There's some employees whose jobs are considered so essential they can't go on strike under any conditions. Some of you may remember the PATCO, or the air traffic controllers strike in the 80s, which President Reagan, the PATCO had actually endorsed Reagan over Jimmy Carter, saying basically that Reagan was the kind of, even though he was Republican, the Democrats hadn't gone to bat for them. And Jimmy Carter hadn't done anything to make sure the air traffic controllers were going to get the union benefits that they had requested, that they were trying to bargain for, and was effectively taking advantage of the fact that they couldn't go on strike. And if they couldn't go on strike, then there's definitely no reason for the government to bargain with them. And so in the end, they had endorsed Reagan over Carter. And the problem with that being, well, the reason why they'd done that is that Reagan was a card-carrying union man. Believe it or not, Ronald Reagan was a member of the AFL-CIO. Why? Because he had been president of SAG, of the Screen Actors Guild, whose new president is Sean Astin. Well, good luck, Sean. Good luck, Samwise. Let's hope this is a wonderful thing. As I understand it, his whole family has been in union things before, particularly in SAG-AFTRA. So, who knows? Anyways, union man though he was, former Governor Reagan proved to be a pretty shitty pro-labor union president, and threatened to put the union leaders in jail and to fire everybody who called in sick. Instead of a strike, they had a sick in, where everybody just called in sick and said, "Oh, I can't come in today, I'm sick." And and he told them, if you don't show up on time this date, you will be fired. And they called his bluff. Turns out he wasn't bluffing. And he had figured that and promised that he would fire all these air traffic controllers, because their lives aren't hard enough, that's for sure. He had promised, but then we'll go out there and we'll train a new workforce, and with an X number of years, it'll be back up. Yeah, in effect, the air traffic controllers have never really recovered. Never really recovered. They got back up to enough force to be able to obviously to have flights running. But it really is an overstressed system with underfinancing in terms of their equipment, in terms of their benefits, in terms of every aspect of life for air traffic controllers. And the guy who's supposed to be fixing that now is Sean Duffy, is the guy who's now moonlighting as the head of NASA. And lo and behold, he's been in the job only a few weeks, and already he is announcing that basically every NASA employee is being downgraded to the same status as those air traffic controllers. Basically, you say you work too many hours, you say you don't get enough time off, you say that you don't get enough health benefits, you don't get enough opportunities to make more pay, you're not getting compensated for the hours that you work. Tough. And that's what basically this letter says. It continues, if you are a former union representative at NASA, you are no longer authorized to use taxpayer-funded union time, or TFUT, otherwise known as official time, nor are you permitted to participate on behalf of employees in Weingarten or formal discussion meetings held with employees. I don't know what that means. Other than you're not allowed on campus to talk union talk. You're not allowed on on company time to talk or do union things. Please reach out to your local EO 14343 implementation contact with questions. Thank you, Larry Zalotti. agency labor relations officer. So this is the beginning of the end of the brain drain. Basically, I don't know how many of you remember this. Back in when the Russo-Ukrainian conflict began in earnest, when Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine in earnest, there was a thing they referred to it as the Russian brain drain, because basically every person who could be drafted to go and fight in Ukraine, who had money and or technical skill applicable anywhere else in the world, picked up and fled and went somewhere else. They went to other European nations. They went to Mexico. They came to the United States. They flew all over the world, desperate to get away from Russia so that the government couldn't draft them and send them to fight in Ukraine. Within a few months, basically, Russia's space program has gone to shit. And, they lost a rocket at one point. I'm not even sure how that ended up. I meant to look it up in time for this broadcast to report on it. But last I heard, the answer is this rocket that they launched to go to the moon. They just lost it. It's just, I don't know, it's out there somewhere. And it's like, oh, great. Thanks. What we needed was more space junk. This is what happens when budget cuts are mandated by dictators who decide that they don't need anybody who's smarter than them to be working in their government, because obviously people who are smarter than them working in their government are going to call them out for all the bad shit that they're doing. So that's where we are. It's been an interesting few weeks recently. Let me go ahead and change this layout. I wanted to give a few updates on some things I've been teasing about. I've been getting big on TikTok again, or big into TikTok again, which has been good. As a matter of fact, I've been meaning to post a new video, 10:30. Yeah, we'll make sure to do that here at the end of broadcast. Our hymns are being at the Church of Korihor are being very well received. Also, some of our Milo Yiannopoulos coverage. Surprisingly, the Milo stuff, because Milo Yiannopoulos right now is blowing up all over TikTok, but it's all the conservatives taking up all of the oxygen in the space. So I launched a short that I made primarily for TikTok, a video short, instead here on YouTube. And on YouTube, it's blowing and going. I mean, it's actually circulating around and gathering up lots of interesting comments. Well, not a lot, a few interesting comments. Suffice it to say, they are not amused with my take on Milo Yiannopoulos being a complete fraud. And I'm fine with that, obviously, because I am myself quite amused. So where normally our YouTube videos, just on their own Steam, we'll get between literally 20 views to 1,000 views, sometimes more than 2,000 views is peak, without actually paying Google to promote them to people. When I pay Google to promote them, even just a few dollars, it actually gets pretty big. No, he's talking to you, Google. It's listening all the time. And but if I pay them to promote it, we get a lot of traction out of it. I'm not exactly in a financial position to do that. Well, lo and behold, I made one video about Milo Yiannopoulos, was not retired, and 12,000 views in as much as, 48 hours, with 55 likes, a little over half of which are positive likes. The rest are down likes. So cool with me. We're getting some attention. We're getting our name out there. And to be blunt with you, I do love it. Yeah, when the Church of Korra Horrors YouTube channel is growing again, at the same time that the TikTok channel is growing, we might actually get this down to a science here, people. But, non-zero chance is our mission, where we are talking about shooting down an asteroid that may or may not strike Earth in December of 2032. Yeah, I've already forgotten. Anyway, but this asteroid, it's popping around, and it's supposed to hit, and by the time it's close enough for Sean Duffy or whomever happens to be installed by the dear leader's regime, by that time it will be too late to deflect it. By the time there's something to be done about it. Now, at current, it is estimated that there is somewhere in the ballpark of 1% chance that this asteroid is actually going to hit Earth, while there is some 4% chance that it will strike our moon when it comes by. But the thing that's disturbing about that is, once again, just this last week, an asteroid that nobody had thought was going to come anywhere near Earth just flew past Earth. Once again, flew past our lunar orbit. So it's not quite as close a call as we are likely to get from ALMA, which is also known as 2024 YR4, because NASA shouldn't name everything. Some things they should leave to me to name. ALMA is going to come around. The issue, of course, that we're currently dealing with, as I have mentioned before, is that ALMA is currently on the other side of the sun. And we don't have instruments that can track him on that side. So what's happening to ALMA on the other side of the sun? We literally don't know. Is it changing course? Is there anything that it's going to run into? Is there anything that is possibly altering its course to where it could potentially hit us after all, that it increases the chances of this skyscraper-sized space rock hitting Earth? We won't know for 2 years, because right now it's going around as we're going around, and that's how long it will be before we can see it again. Good luck to us. The great news for those of you who were hoping that the big giant meteor would hit us sometime soon is that every single week so far, since we started into this tracking all of this. Hey, how's it going? I was away from StreamYard for a minute. Hey, cool. That's great, Woos. As I've been tracking this space rock and all the space rocks in the vicinity of our precious planet, with the prospect looming overhead that Sean Duffy and company may or may not cancel the telescope that will warn us, give us advance warning on near-Earth objects hitting us. That's the NEO Surveyor, that's supposed to be slated to launch as of next year. Is that every single week we discovered that a rock that they thought was not going to come anywhere near Earth turns out is a lot closer than we thought. And at least a couple of times we've actually had asteroids that came within our lunar orbit, actually penetrate through our lunar orbit, like 2024 YR4 is supposed to do in 2032. And so in one of those, I was hosting an event to watch it, because an Italian astronomer has been tracking these with his telescope, and is generously given to the world a live view as he watches this rock basically soaring over Italy. This was a couple of weeks ago. I canceled that event because I was overwhelmed. Effectively, it's been a trying time. So, in any event, some of you may remember that about a week ago, a conservative blowhard by the name of Charlie Kirk uh, went to be with the asshole in the sky. And assholes should be together. I have said many times now, I feel like too many times, but apparently some people feel it's not enough. I didn't want that for him. I don't think the world is better off because it happened. I'm not celebrating it. I'm just saying. 2 days later, within 48 hours, they had someone in custody named Tyler Robinson. At first, it seemed like pretty clear he was a MAGA Mormon kid from St. George. Then I said on Friday, after they had him in custody last week, so it's been 1 week now, I said on TikTok in a video I took down, I wish I hadn't, they will try to pin this on trans people because that's the thing that's hip to do now, and that Charlie Kirk would have wanted done. They will not care whether or not it is true. They will only capitalize on the fact that they could get people riled up who hate trans people. I proved prophetic with that because, of course, that's exactly what happened. I don't know if you've noticed, but the text message conversation that was released by the district attorney here in Utah County, well, even conservatives are pointing out that it looks like it was written by ChatGPT. I personally, apparently, it was run through at some point by ChatGPT and through ChatGPT and Grok, who both apparently decided that that it almost certainly was not genuine and that it was not written by a 22-year-old American male. There's just no way. It just doesn't. It doesn't. The language doesn't sound right. I don't think I have to tell you. Those of you who have been following this, why? But more than that, what I didn't realize until just yesterday was that everything about this young man supposedly being in love with a trans person was a claim made at some point by his very far right parents, who have told investigators that over the course of the last year he has become radicalized, having arguments with his father and becoming very passionate about thinking of gay people and trans people as people. And so that's what passes as radicalized, apparently. I had not realized that was the source that apparently the FBI and the Utah County District Attorney's Office are using as basically proving a motive for this young man to decide that he was going to take the life of another human being in a very public place, and a very prominently placed human being inside the conservative movement, and then freaking Navy SEAL his ass down a wall on the opposite side of the building, stashing the firearm as he ran off, and then with the intention apparently of coming back to get it because it's his grandpa's rifle, quote unquote. And I looked at that footage again. Now, I mentioned this in a video I published earlier today. I was there at UVU about 5 hours after the event. I was intentionally avoiding Orem for reasons that I won't rehash. I actually had to go to Orem that evening. I didn't mind it. I had been avoiding it because I was worried the traffic would be bad. So I found my way down there. And then because I had missed my turn, I had to loop back around through the UVU parking lot, through the UVU frontage road, basically, there on the freeway, the I-15. And I had to drive right past that building. And looked up at these buildings and looked at it and said, that 22-year-old kid jumped off that building onto the grass below. And that was his plan. I just don't buy it. He's a skinny kid where I am a fat old man. Maybe that is what. But I looked at it and said, I just don't buy it. Everything about the way this was carried out screamed to me like it did to a lot of people as a professional hit. This is a former Navy SEAL. This is a Delta Force commando. This is a freaking Green Beret. This person who carried this out had done it before. And now that I see that all of these claims being made, first of all, they're too convenient. It's too convenient that, of course, it is a white boy whose family was somewhat estranged, apparently, from the Mormon church, and he is in love, quote unquote, as they say, with a trans boyfriend, as they label and misgender this person, who is a male to female transgender person. If they were a male to female transgender person, they almost certainly would be a girlfriend, not a boyfriend. It would be strange for somebody to point that out in the wrong way, unless they intentionally mean to, hey buddy, what can I do for you? You want one of those? You can take it. You can take it. Yeah. Dad's broadcasting. Okay, go watch Ponyo then. So yeah. So too much of it doesn't add up to me. I don't know how much of this I don't know how long it will take me to really sift out all of the evidence that is available. But frankly, the more evidence that becomes available, it appears that it's all going through this DA here in Utah County. And I'll say this about the Utah County District Attorney. Our last district attorney here was pretty sus. And when it came down to the recent election, 2023, a certain conservative political action committee started to circulate the rumor that our current district attorney, who is a weirdo for sure, was involved in a prostitution and or potentially trafficking ring and cannibalism and ritual sacrifice. Ritual sacrifice. It was like Pizzagate on steroids here in Utah County. Yeah. And there's been a lot. The district, it's a good question, Hyde. Is the district attorney Tim Ballard's more closely, as I understand it, more closely connected to the Sheriff Smith at the time, who endorsed this person's David Levitt. He's one of the Levitts. If you don't know, the Levitts are an extremely influential political family here in Utah. Anyway, yeah, Tim Ballard is inside the loop. Is basically the answer to that. How closely tied is Tim Ballard into it? I can't say. I still don't know the details on that. If anyone does know the details on that, I'm going to have to do some sniffing around. But I can tell you this. This person, the fact that the person who comes out and reads This text message conversation sounds very much like something an old man would write. It's not a surprise to me that it sounds like something an old man would write. And this old man was out there reading it. While every attorney general, every DA, every prosecutor worth their salt was bemoaning this on the internet, saying, if this conversation is real, first of all, it doesn't seem to be. But secondly, if it is, they are sinking their case against this young man by reading it out to the press like this. Why are they doing that? What's up, Diamond Dave? Oh, Hyde, you're thinking of Sean Reyes. The news about Sean Reyes is that he officially doesn't endorse anyone for Senate. And that was the last news on Sean Reyes. Basically, he doesn't. He has more or less officially distanced himself from Tim Ballard altogether. I highly doubt that. I'm sure they are out there. Yeah, Dave, you want to do some call-ins? Yeah, let me throw a link to the StreamYard in here. Anybody wants to pop up, you're welcome to. We got through our story about NASA today. That's in the comments, the link to the StreamYard. You guys are welcome. So yeah, that's a little teaser about what I may be doing a series about in the near future. I don't know where that's going to go. I am a little intrigued by the prospect. Actually, I am a little bit intrigued by the fact that it may be connected with Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard, as some of you know, has been re-emerging in the news arena with a scandal he's involved in Argentina. And the persons involved in said scandal are highly connected in the Conservative Political Action Committee, in CPAC. And we're at CPAC's recent conference, where Elon Musk came out with the chainsaw and did that whole thing. All these people are now Epstein third degree at minimum at this point, because they are all within 1 degree of Donald Trump. And that's another one that I've been looking at possibly kicking off. This is very high level. Don't blame me if I don't end up doing this, you guys. And I got Diamond Dave here. We're gonna bring him on into the stage here in a minute. But I've been thinking about creating basically a map that is the 6 degrees of Jeffrey Epstein. Just because you see the same characters showing up again and again in so many different things. Tim Ballard and Jeffrey Epstein are more closely linked than people realize. And just the fact that, everybody is 6 degrees supposedly from somebody isn't going to cover it. So that's another interesting thing. How often all of this conservative world shenanigan comes down to all these 4 or 5 people or number of high profile individuals are all connected to Jeffrey Epstein or to Tim Ballard or to Donald Trump or to Steve Bannon. And that's where I am currently, is that this week, I don't know how many of you know this, but just this past week, Steve Bannon came out to hit Mormons, which has been an interesting time right now. This is the second time a high profile in the last few weeks, a high profile conservative personality has gone out of their way to try and accuse Mormons of not being real Christians. Okay, that's not that new. Mormons are hypocrites, so yeah, definitely Christians. But that they are somehow responsible for criminal behaviors or for tearing down America. And the Mormons are really hurt. The other guy, by the way, is a executive at the Daily Wire. I don't know how many of you saw that, but he was really, but boy, has he got the people at Ward Radio really butthurt, and it was quite an amusing thing to watch. In any event, let's bring on Diamond Dave because it's been so long since I've seen my friend, and we have him here in the studio. Dave, how are you,
What's up,
buddy?
dude? I haven't seen you in a hot minute.
Oof, I'm here,
Got
buddy.
got a bunch of American politics on the show. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's we have turned strangely political. It definitely is not something I had wanted to do, but basically everything in the world is revolves around it now. I don't know if you noticed.
Well, I think everything in America always has revolved around politics. That's just kind of the way it is. Even in like entertainment, it's always had a political slant going back to the original Star Wars in the 70s with Vietnam. So,
That's
like,
true.
yeah.
That's true. George Lucas had said that people misunderstand Star Wars as being about the Revolutionary War, when actually he said it was about the Vietnam War, and the rebellion were the Viet Cong.
Yeah, not a lot of not yeah. Like
I
only
was
us
like,
hardcore Star Wars fans know that. Yeah.
it's like, man, back in the day, George didn't mind courting some controversy with some of his opinions. I wish he would do more of it now.
Well, I think just because Star Wars owns Disney now, there's not a lot he really can. Disney owns Star Wars now, so it's
Very
not
cool.
like. I mean, they will listen to him to a point, but because he doesn't actually own it anymore, he can't really direct things, and that's why you have
Oh, yeah.
bizarre spin-offs like the Acolyte and whatever.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one either, but I'm not watching any of them because I canceled my Disney Plus subscription over this Jimmy Kimmel thing, and this is
Really? I heard about that. I still have like Disney Plus. Yeah, I get why people cancel stuff for that reason.
yeah.
So it's
I
cool. I'm
canceled
just
my
like
Paramount
I
subscription.
love my Clone Wars and Bad Batch too much to get rid of it.
It was painful, man. I mean, it was a sacrifice, because I love me some Star Wars and Star Trek the same. I haven't seen anything from the new season of Strange New Worlds because when they announced that Stephen Colbert was being canceled, I said, "That's it. I won't support you anymore."
Yeah,
Yeah,
for me, I didn't watch Strange New Worlds. The last one I saw was what is it? It's on Amazon. I forget the name, but it's on Amazon, and it's got like the what is it? It's basically got like warp drive based on like mycelium, right? Like the little spores in outer
Discovery.
space. Just
Yeah,
thank
it's
you,
Star Trek
Discovery. That was the last one I saw. I enjoyed it as kind of like, okay, this doesn't seem like Star Trek canon to me.
Right.
But when I started watching it as like a standalone, almost like a fan fiction, I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty cool fan fiction. This is I can get on board with it that way.
Cool. Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot from US pages about like Jimmy Kimmel getting like canceled and like a bunch of people getting canceled, and I'm like, on the one hand, yeah, that's messed up. But on the other hand, if you look at the financials, like that does play a role with it too. And I think
The
that
thing-
I
The thing
think
that
that
really is disturbing about it is that this was predicted by Donald Trump and his campaign before the election. That
exactly, yeah,
they would weaponize the FCC to make sure that networks were obligated to get in line with the administration's messaging. And
yeah, that's definitely the concerning aspect. It's not just the financials. That's when like kind of the red flags go up when the FCC is like, okay, you have to get on board with what the administration wants in terms of messaging for your entertainment, or you can't broadcast.
yeah,
I do think, however, and we've seen this with the Acolyte, I do think, however, that with how much like political polarization that goes on, like the moment anything gets canceled, it's automatically the other side that did it, right?
Right.
And we've
Right.
seen that with the Acolyte, and people were just like, "Oh, it's all the conservatives that are trying to cancel Star Wars," and the reality was that they lost over well over $100 million on it, and people weren't watching it.
Right. And who knows what Disney, I mean, I don't think that people realize in the entertainment world how formulaic everything has become, to the point where they've just given up on the fact that they really don't know what people want or like anymore. They just don't even care. And
Well,
it's
yeah, we
like,
see that with Acolyte, with Star Wars, and even like some Star Treks, like that put a lot of people off. Um, just because there are people who are in it, like myself. I'm in it for the canon. I'm in it for the universe. I'm in it to, immerse myself in a cohesive, consistent universe. And then when you throw in something like Discovery that takes place before Captain Kirk's time, right, and is way more high tech than Kirk was, Kirk's era, that's kind of a hard disconnect to reconcile.
right.
And as fans, it's like we don't want to have to do like mental gymnastics to like reconcile things that we like to make it fit. We just want to hop in and it's all there and we can just kind of navigate it as we see fit.
Right. Yeah, and it's it's an interesting conundrum always with entertainment, is that how they're going to balance long running series and sagas with how much is fan service for the older crowd that has grown up with it, loved it, and been a part of it forever, as opposed to bringing in fresh audiences and with new values for younger audiences. And that's always been the case, because like that's what it was with the prequels, right? The prequels were all about, well, George is trying to get younger kids in by bringing in Anakin's story, like as if it's for a bunch of kids, And then poor George. I mean, I kind of have always felt like George got a really bad rap about the prequels. I mean, he really did try to be faithful to the storyline, and it really was, in a way, we got too much exposure to his raw imagination. And it's like, oh
Yeah,
wow, some of the
thank God.
limitations.
Thank God for Dave Filoni. He kept Star Wars, I would say, overall on track.
I have to say,
sure.
I thought the person I was surprised at how great he has been is Jon Favreau. I really, I've loved Jon Favreau as an actor and a director since Swingers, right? And he's an indie, film favorite of mine. But like The Mandalorian and these series, I really just think that he has been. I mean, he has really given new life to Star Wars, and with enough homage to the canon that I really have enjoyed it. I felt like I've always felt that Abrams was such a mistake. I really don't. Giving him the reins of two franchises, I think, was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good writer. He's a good director. I just don't.
Well, I think that's just like, I mean, giving J.J. Abrams or any person two franchises, that's just insane. Like you can't.
It's a huge mistake. In the
Yeah, it's a
same
huge mistake. Yeah.
in basically the same genre, even though they're both sci-fi and then they're both also not. But it's like, yeah, no, it's
Star
like,
Wars is sci fantasy. So it's, I mean, if you want to get all purist, like technically it's not
but
the same.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like putting somebody in charge of like a James, you're going to revamp James Bond and also, Mission Impossible or something, like
Yeah,
that.
it's like
It's
you just can't do it because the universes are so big, or even like Marvel and DC. Those universes are too big for any one person to manage.
totally.
Because I mean, if you look how big Star Wars or Star Trek is, each of the planets has their own language, their own economy, and etc. And you have to manage that and kind of fit everything in. You can't.
Speaking of, interesting, because like speaking of science fiction versus fantasy, do you get much into over there now that you're in Asia? And you're perfectly welcome to tell me, Joe. Don't get me in trouble. Fuck off with these weird questions.
Oh no, that's fine.
Um, do you hear much about the space ambitions? Like, China and Russia are working on. They have a lot of space projects. China is increasing its budget every year.
China's launching rockets every day practically because they're so I saw this on Facebook and I kind of did my own little research, but there's like you know how Starlink uses like radio waves, right? They launch satellites and they do like however that works, right? The satellites. China's allegedly found a way, and so is Russia, to like do the same thing but with lasers, so it's faster. And Japan has already got this, but they figured out how to do it. So like yeah, they're launching, they're launching their own satellites. China wants to go back to the moon. I think Russia wants to go back to the moon.
Well, now Sean Duffy's his big, bone to pick is that he wants to beat Russia and China to developing and putting a nuclear reactor on the south pole of the moon, right? I don't know how much entered into.
I've heard bits and pieces about Elon Musk wanting to do that. I think I don't know. My personal opinion is like Elon Musk has some pretty out there ideas, and it's kind of one of those things where, since we're talking about science fiction and fantasy, like if you go into the really deep lore of Star Trek or Star Wars, right, like how did Zefram Cochrane build the Warp 5 engine? Well, I mean, he had substantial funding to actually build the damn thing because of logistics, right? So on the one hand, it does sound kind of out there, but on the other hand, Elon Musk does actually have the money to throw at these things. And so for me, I'm kind of in a more, okay, let's wait and see. Because, when we look at the entertainment that we enjoy, Warp Drive in Star Trek, or even like the TIE fighters, right, in Star Wars, the twin ion engines, Sinar Industries, right? That started from one stupidly wealthy dude and one wealthy family is like, we're going to throw all of our money into this.
Right.
And now it's just globally everywhere in the universes. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of reading it and like, okay, that's interesting, Not a lot I can do about it though. So
no. But I tell you, I think they call their rocket, the Chinese call their rocket the Long March, I think. I forget.
I think that sounds correct. Yeah. I haven't followed too much on it. I see articles here and there, like many people do. I just kind of click on what I like and like, oh, that's an interesting tab, and then it disappears in the feed and I never see it again. So
but between that and the New Glenn and the and I think technically the Falcon Heavy are the only rockets that can actually launch a nuclear reactor of the size that the Trump administration is talking about putting on the moon. Obviously,
what I'm wondering is, because Elon Musk has also talked about colonizing the moon and colonizing Mars. I think if anything, what would be more realistic is like if rockets were sent to like build places for people to live, and then they ship up parts and then they build the reactor there. Because a fully functioning nuclear reactor, I'm no expert on this, but it's a very big piece of equipment, and therefore I'm assuming it's very heavy. So I think it would make more sense to just like when people ship out, cars or like tanks or massive semi trucks. Can they do it? Yeah, but it's easier to like ship the frame and then ship the engine separately and then ship the chassis and everything else. So that could be,
which is what China and Russia are planning to do for their nuclear reactor, but which also, by the way, has it uses solar energy to supplement the nuclear reactors. They're planning to launch a miniaturized one, basically kind of like the ones that they've designed for satellites and things like this.
Yeah.
And and they're going to land that on the moon, and then they're going to supplement it with solar panels on either side of the moon, so that at any point in time they're collecting at least some sunlight to supplement that energy output. But really, the real reason why they're doing any of it is that supposedly is that Elon Musk and NASA and anybody else who wants to go to Mars, they need oxygen to do it. And liquefied oxygen and liquefied natural gas, lifting that off from the Earth's surface, you have that rocket problem, right? The more fuel you have is the more fuel you need, is the more fuel you have is the more fuel you need. Whereas if they can develop a nuclear reactor on the moon, they can convert ice on the South Pole into liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, and actually start exporting rocket fuel from the moon. Obviously, that's a lot easier to get fuel off.
It's still like doing anything on the moon is still a very time intensive and like cost intensive venture.
Right. Which is why it's strange to announce for Sean Duffy to announce that. Am I saying his name wrong again? I do that sometimes. To announce not only that they're going to put a nuclear reactor there, but he says they are going to launch it all as one piece, and it is all going, and that it's going to be 100 kilowatt hour. It's a massive piece of equipment that basically no rocket, except for I think the new Glenn can actually lift off.
Well, I mean, I think some of it's a propaganda piece. I mean, let's be honest. We're American. We have to do everything bigger and better. It has to be big. It can't be simple. Right. We want to, people are like India. India is like super stoked that they put like a little robot on the moon. They're super like literally, pun intended, they are over the moon about it. And then as Americans, we have to be like, well, we're going to put a building on the moon because we fucking can. Like,
right.
I think a lot of that's just propaganda. But I did see kind of the topic about the NASA brain drain, which I wanted to weigh on because I have seen a lot of articles about like science because I'm a nerd and like what's going on politically in America with the Trump administration. And what's very fascinating is if you follow influencers like Talk It Out with Li Jingjing or like other like Chinese Facebook pages, because of what Trump's doing in the schools and how he's treating immigration, he's talking about beating China. But there are Chinese professors and Chinese students who are saying, you know what, I can make more money in China and I can actually make a difference in China. So they're actually flooding back to China, right?
No kidding.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of articles on that. I've seen like within the past week, I've seen like 20 plus articles of professors in different institutions in America who have engineering or mathematical or nuclear physics or something. And they're like, the Chinese, government media is saying, hey, they're back here now working for us. And they are. Right, because you go on their Facebook pages, they're public figures, some of them, and they're talking about I'm moving back to China, right? And I think the big thing when we talk about brain drain, not just in America, but just anywhere in the country, it's like, oh no, we're having a brain drain. That's the one side of the coin, but people don't talk about the other side of the coin, and that's where are these brains going? Because they don't fall off the map, right? These Chinese people, or it doesn't really matter the ethnicity, honestly, but it's like if you have a brain drain from NASA, they have families, they need to make money, and food is a pretty important thing. Have to get employment somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh yeah, prices in America are skyrocketing. So it's like they're going to go somewhere. It's not like, the brain drain is just a bunch of intelligent people just fall off the map. Like they're going places. Where are they going?
Right. Well,
and people don't talk about that. It would not surprise me if a lot of these people who are getting booted out of NASA or even booted out of the military are going to go to countries like China, Russia. They might even go to Europe. I've seen a couple where they're like, you know what, I'm going to go work in like Brazil. Like I saw someone, I forget his name, but he was like a military advisor to, I think it was the Obama administration. And with Trump's crackdown and everything going on, he's like, you know what? I'll just go work for Brazil.
Huh.
And now he's
I
there.
didn't even know that Brazil had a space agency. That's interesting.
Well, no, not this is so
Oh.
he specifically isn't military. He isn't space. He's military. So he's a military
Oh.
brain. Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
So when we
Gotcha.
talk about brain drain, we're not just talking about NASA. We're talking about in general, right?
But that's
so we have
another area that's interesting about the brain drain and financing is that, you know, we're supposed to be, we're the number one exporter. U.S. is definitely the number one exporter of military hardware in the world, traditionally speaking. And during the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, that kicked off. And I mean, he was selling to everybody. I mean, shit, he was selling to the Saudis. I mean, he made like the biggest arms deal in history with the Saudis. But then but now they're talking about that people, you know, whole nations are talking about, we're not going to do business with America anymore. Even buying their defense tech, we can get it somewhere else. We can pay, even if we pay more, we just don't want to funnel any more of this money into America right now. And
yeah,
so,
I actually saw that because what was it? Pete Hegseth went to the ASEAN nations, like Southeast nations, like you need to buy from America. You need to spend more on the military because China is your existential threat. And they rejected him, and several of those countries actually started buying from China and stopped buying from the U.S.
it's interesting to see because they start to panic. You know, there's been a panic about China's military hardware for a while, but then they'll downplay it because, of course, it's bad for business. But the fact of the matter is, right now, China has some of the most advanced military hardware in the world. And because they've been investing in it, they've been investing in the science, they've been investing in the infrastructure, and they can manufacture. I mean, it's not just that manufacturing is cheap in China; it's that they have some of the best manufacturing minds in the world, if not the.
Well, it's not even just that. I think when it comes to this is where the fatal flaw of capitalism comes into play, because in America, people got lazy, people wanted to spend money, and they outsourced all the manufacturing to India, Vietnam, China, Indonesia, and some other countries, right? Well, I mean, those countries took that money and then they were investing it into their own infrastructure, into military hardware and things like that. So now, when you talk about America, like because Donald Trump and many people want America to be top dog, right? They want to make all the money, right? They don't have the manufacturing capability. They also just don't have the manpower because America is split politically, right? So, like, if you were to imagine all these jobs like coming back to America, right? Let's pretend all these countries, they kick out the American manufacturers. It's all back in America. Anyone who disagrees with Donald Trump will not work in those factories at all. They will not support the businesses that the American that the Donald Trump administration is trying to push everyone to invest in. So that's roughly a 30-40% of the country, because there are children and apolitical people as well. 30 to 40% of the country right there that doesn't work at it. Whereas countries like China and India, they have, 1 billion people.
Right.
And 30 to 40% of the population of India is much more than the entire population of the US.
Right.
So they will have better manufacturing when, in terms of like manpower.
Right. Part of the failure, I think, of capitalism ultimately, and the promise of capitalism that I think is being shown particularly in space investment right now, is that while NASA, even after these cuts, because they cut NASA's budget by 40+%, like 47%.
Yeah, it's almost a 50% cut.
Yeah. But the thing is, while China is still, I think, less than half their investment in less than half of NASA's investment, that's a significant. While that is a small fraction of the U.S. government's budget, is NASA. It's actually a fairly small figure, all in, compared to our budget. China is investing a significant portion of their whole economy into space projects, and both military and commercial projects in a country where the government owns everything basically. There's no difference between commercial and military and clandestine services and government services. It's all the same. So they can afford to just put Xi Jinping in a position where he can just say, yeah, this is X percentage of our whole economy. It's worth it because it's going to create this amount of jobs. It's going to create this amount of energy. It's going to it's going to put us on the head of all these waves. And it's like, you say what you will about post-communism capitalism in China,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great, effective way to invest infrastructure money into a vision of the future that has a chance of actually working. You know, capitalism really has let us down when it comes to
Yeah.
that. So,
Well, capitalism is going to, I think, ultimately be the downfall of the American empire, as I call it. Because I mean, countries are bailing on the petrodollar, right? You've got BRICS nations. I saw an article, I want to say it was back in 2016, 2017, might have been more recent, but India buys their petroleum and oil from the Saudis, not on the petrodollar, but on rupees. And that's actually kind of problematic because, that's, again, when we talk about population, that's a huge part of the global population that is not that is not
American.
like using not American, but not using the petrodollar too. The thing about no legit rational billionaires to exist, as Hyde said, is the mentality of billionaires outside the US is very different than the mentality of billionaires inside the US. Because, like, here in Asia, there are billionaires. You look at the Adani family in India, the Ambani family in India, but they're not just people who have a bunch of assets in their name on a bunch of things and sit around and, like, they're not the Bezos, right, who just sit around and do nothing. They actively invest in military hardware infrastructure. Like, part of the space, part of the India mission, actually, a lot of that money came from the wealthiest families in India because of, like, the mentality of, we want our country to be better. Right? So, excuse me. So, a lot of that was funded by that. And when you look at China, China does have billionaires, and they're sinking stupid amounts of money into that.
Yeah.
I
like this. Yeah, no,
the value of dollars tied to someone's time. It's not possible for someone's time. On the one hand, I get that. That does make sense. But on the other hand, like, currency has to be backed by something tangible. Time is not tangible. It's a construct. And time is, like, I mean, I don't know. My time, I would say you're going to pay a lot of money. Right, like, if I'm charging someone for my time, you're gonna go bankrupt, right? But to someone else's time might not be worth as much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's another flaw of capitalism too, was because America went off the gold standard and went off of, like, not just the gold standard, but the dollar used to be backed by commodities, right? By tangible things. And if you ever get, like, a dollar bill that's blue, right? So it's got the blue seal on it. It's backed by silver. Red is backed by gold, and then brown is backed by tangible commodities. So, but that doesn't exist anymore.
There's a flaw in the gross domestic product philosophy of valuation, right? The productivity it's one thing to say, that dollars represent productivity, but then most of it is held by the laziest people in the world. Then it's not definitely not a symbol of productivity,
No.
And so, it's there's definitely a flaw in that system. But what I love to look out and see right now is that while I normally would never have considered China to be much of a threat, in our ecosystem. And I've always had kind of the feeling that, you know what, we share this world, and if they can do something to make their world better and to make their economy better and improve things, well, then let them do it and let nobody lecture them on how they're going to do it. But at the same time, I look at it, and I've been looking out and seeing more and more reports about China is seriously concerned about asteroid deflection, which they had not been prior to the recent upticks in NASA identifying all of these near Earth objects. And it's like, okay, if our government doesn't take it seriously, at least the Chinese are taking it seriously, and they've got the growing wherewithal to do something about it. So
well, it's more than just that. So there is something that I saw and I like years ago, but it's called the rods of God, right? And
Okay.
I think it's outdated now, but it's basically it's a military weapon the U.S. has. It's a satellite that drops massive tungsten rods straight down, and
Oh,
it
right.
has that, and it has the impact of a nuclear blast or like a small asteroid. So when countries like China like all of a sudden go, and India started talking about it too, it's like, oh, we need to deflect asteroids. I've always interpreted that as we need a way to deflect nuclear warheads because they have the same impact. You know what I mean? But like on a global stage, you can't say, yeah, we're going to be building our own nukes to take out other nukes because that sounds terrible, right?
Right.
Like,
I mean,
you
look,
don't say that in the United Nations. What you say is, yeah, we're very concerned about, you know, near Earth objects, which guess what? A nuke in orbit is a near Earth object. And we want to deflect near Earth objects, which, you know, yeah, it's very near. So
that's very near.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, being able to detect an asteroid, I mean, the deflecting asteroids, I mean, you have to do it like way out in advance as opposed to something. I mean, but if you could develop a technology that would deflect an ICBM, you know, create like an Iron Dome type of, you know, defense system, whatever that is, like, you know, usually that's going to be some kind of, what I call it, munitions. But you know, if you could, that would also be effective. One would imagine for deflecting asteroids or at least destroying meteorites as they enter the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And historically, if it has a defense application, they figure out a way to make the money happen.
Well, exactly, because I mean, you have to, like, asteroids move really quickly, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They move faster than nuclear warheads. So if you can drop an asteroid, you sneeze and you're fine. Like you have an Iron Dome, basically. Right? You have that Iron Dome. So that's why countries like China with hypersonic weapons, Russia with hypersonic weapons, India has hypersonic weapons. Like, countries are getting hypersonic weapons for that reason because, well, guess what? If you can shoot down an asteroid moving quick, you can easily take out a nuclear warhead. You can easily take out a missile.
Well, I guess I never heard of that they could use it for asteroid deflection. I guess
well, I think hypersonic is like, obviously you want to move faster than your enemy can shoot you down, right? But the same method, yes, and the same exactly, and more altitude. So the same methodology applies. And what that also could lead to is, like, if you can drop an asteroid from, let's say we're in China and we can drop an asteroid. Well, we can also take down the military, you know, the U.S. military satellites floating around taking pictures of us, right?
Right.
You know, so it's all kind of interconnected with that. But I do think, like, I don't know. I think America's not. I think America's missing the mark in many ways, and capitalism is going to be the downfall of humanity temporarily, which ironically we see in Star Trek. We see it both in World War III, and we also see it in what's called the eugenics wars, where people that want to genetically modify humans to be better. Elon Musk has talked about kind of something similar where, the survival of the species. We want to make humans better and we want to survive anything. Right? That's how the eugenics wars happens. And, shit hits the fan. And then in Star Trek, people move away from currency and capitalism entirely because it's not prudent. It just doesn't work. There was an
As a
astronaut
result of the
who was
eugenics wars.
yeah, and there was an astronaut, a Russian astronaut, who lived on the ISS, and he came back, and he's kind of in some hot water from what I've heard because he's very much against the Ukraine war. Because he lived 8 months in the International Space Station, and he's like, go up there. There's no borders. There's no cultural differences.
Sure.
Like we should be one entity
Yeah,
living in space.
sure.
Again, very Star Trek, but
That's why we started the our overview meditation app and program is that, astronauts from all over the world have said, have experienced what they call the overview effect. So you look down on this planet from outer space, you see that really all of our differences are just so damn petty. And we have this planet that is very much affected by human activity. It's affected by natural forces, and it's affected by the guy that really was the first record of overview effects was Rusty Schweickart, who after he became disoriented, basically his nervous system flipped out while he was floating on Apollo 8, looking down on Earth. He had this like transcendental experience just observing Earth from space, and he returned to Earth. NASA wouldn't put him back up in space because they were like, we don't know if his body's going to do that again, and it's going to freak out. Turns out it happens to almost every astronaut, and they just taught them meditation so that they can handle it. And but he actually has dedicated the rest of his life, and he's still out there working now, to defending Earth from asteroid impacts. It's the number one concern. People don't realize this, but we are under bombardment from these meteorites, and it's only a matter of time before they really do serious damage. So
well, yeah, and I mean that's true with like you look at the moon or you look at Mars or anything. Those craters are bigger than New York, right. They're bigger than California in some cases. California is fucking huge, right? So it's like if that like a meteorite that big were to hit Earth, we're screwed. It's not like a flood or a wildfire where you can log or like set up dams and like actually like avoid it, right?
We have meteorites. We have meteorites on Earth that we know are from Mars. They're from either a Mons Olympus explosion, or they are from asteroid impacts that just knocked off so much material from Mars that they landed on Earth.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I mean, asteroids like wiped out the dinosaurs, and I regardless of whether or not you believe humans live with dinosaurs, if they did, those humans didn't do well. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it's like this is something that humanity could unite under. It's just like basic self-preservation.
I mean, we live with dinosaurs now. That's that you'd have to convince a lot of people of something very different. I don't know if you saw my Milo.
The reptilians.
No, birds are dinosaurs. They reclassify.
No,
birds.
I know. I was teasing, but the funny thing was that I was still thinking about Star Trek when you brought up we live with dinosaurs. I'm like, oh yeah, the Voth, where like if for those of you who don't know, the Voth are basically hadrosaurs, and somehow in like the Star Wars universe, real life happened. The asteroid hit. All the dinosaurs got wiped out, except a small group of hadrosaurs on like an island or something somewhere. And while humanity was restoring itself and the Earth was restoring itself, they developed space travel, screwed off, and then they ended up in the Delta Quadrant.
Oh.
You know, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, oh, the Voth are here? Cool. Like,
No, but the interesting thing about the for me anyways, about the oh shoot. Now I lost my place about it. Anyways,
we were talking about asteroids.
yeah, we always are.
Uh,
this is the but no, I mean, look, right now we're slated next year to launch NEO Surveyor, which is a like the James Webb for looking for asteroids here in our orbits. And it's very seriously looking like they're probably going to cancel it, and maybe also the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which would be a huge blow to those of us who love the idea, who love the SETI program and looking for extraterrestrial life in nearby solar systems, and so it's like this is it is so bad what's happening with NASA that I can't help but look at it and say there's a geopolitical risk that I think the Trump administration doesn't have enough experience, brain power to realize this. Because, like you're saying, just like you're saying, suppose that not only Chinese nationals or people with Chinese connections, a Chinese family, or people of Chinese extraction go back to China or go to China where their ancestors are from or what have you, but also Americans who are leaving NASA and realizing they don't have there aren't enough commercial space operations and projects, enough defense contracts in America to
they're going to
employ all of them.
Singapore. They're going to Singapore. Some of them are going to Singapore. My sister-in-law's boyfriend, like they both live in Singapore, and I was outside smoking when they were visiting, and he and I were talking. Really good dude. Love that guy to death. And we were, and he's in, you know, aeronautics and like commercial space flight, and like that's what he's graduating from, right? And
where
it's
is he
such
studying? Do you mind my asking? Did he tell you where he was studying?
he told me, I forget where it was. Honestly.
Was it in America though?
No, they live in Singapore. So how it is you go, you get your degree in Singapore, and then you're bonded for 3 years and have to work in Singapore. And he said that like when it comes to like aeronautics, space travel, anything involving like flight, it's extremely competitive. Not just because it's Singapore and schools are competitive, but because there's a lot of foreigners who are showing up in like Singapore and Malaysia and China. There's a bunch of foreigners who are like, hey, can we get jobs? You know what I mean?
So you're saying it's competitive as in it's difficult to find work there.
Yeah. It's competitive to like get into schools because so many people apply, including foreigners. It's competitive because it's difficult to find work for other reasons, but there is the foreign aspect too.
But you would think that if there's all of this brain drain coming out of America, I mean, I don't really see that the ESA is going out of their way to finance more projects for Europe. But if China and Japan and India particularly are increasing their budgets and their projects for space, you would think that countries like Taiwan, which of course is the geopolitical what shall we say, catalyst of the beginning of the end of all things. Taiwan, you have Singapore, you have Korea. All these are countries with strong connections and favorable connections to the United States, and even India, strong favorable connections to the United States. That if there's an opportunity to support China and Russia in their spaceborne efforts, it seems to me like that's when they look around and say, have we backed the wrong horse with America if even America's geniuses and are fleeing America to end up in Asia? And so I'm looking at this, I'm like, did you guys play the dumbest possible hand to the possibility of maintaining control in Taiwan and particularly in
Yeah, well, I think too the Trump administration is focused like too much again on capitalism and like reputation and things like that, like American superiority, right? But it's really at the expense of their goals. Because I mean, take someone like Brain Drain, Americans leaving for other countries. Like before I met my wife, I'm working at Wells Fargo. I'm wanting to expand my career. I'm looking at India. I wanted to go back to India because before we met, I wanted to like, hey, they have Wells Fargo's in India, they have Black Rocks in India. I do have the privilege of having like, some cousins running around there I can like track down eventually somehow. But I also understand the culture. I could just go to India. I could make the same amount of money, which in India is a lot more buying power than it is in America, right? I'm making like 2,500 US dollars a month, plus like 600 bucks a month on and off, anywhere from 300 to 600 consistently. So that's like 3,100 ish. That's a lot of money in India. That's a ton of money in India, right? And so it's like I'm looking for opportunities to go back to India. I know of other Americans who want to expand finance degrees or military degrees, or not military degrees, but like military careers as civilian contractors in countries like the Philippines. Years ago, I was hanging out with some friends going to a Filipino church. Amazing people. They constantly, gave me food. Wonderful people. And one of the guys who was a Filipino was like, "Hey, we were talking with the pastor and some older people, and they were like, "Hey, he was in the U.S. Navy," and so the pastor and the elderly people, like, "You want to come work in the Philippines as a civilian contractor?" And I'm like, "Doing what?" And they're like, "Well, there's problems in the northern islands of the Philippines with Chinese vessels harassing Philippine fishing vessels. Trafficking is also a problem, especially by foreigners, and the Philippine police can't do much about it, but Americans can." And I'm like, "What would I have to do?" And they're like, "Just bring your documentation and they'll give you gear and tell you to go do stuff." And I'm like, I did a little bit of research on it at the time. And, if you can prove you have a military background, developing nations with strong ties to America, like the Philippines, if they have problems, like as an American, they will give you weapons and gear, and they will just like, here's some translators, here's a team, this is what you're going to be doing, go have fun,
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm like,
Finance seems a much safer career choice.
yeah, I definitely don't want to go back to that part of my life, but it's a good learning experience regardless. But yeah, so that's where I was at before I got married, moved to Mongolia. I was looking to go back to India and just expand opportunities, because people don't talk about in America, there's not a lot of opportunities to thrive, right?
Considering we have like the most
Tim
expensive
Ballard's military
market.
experience. Tim Ballard's playing with all his military experience. Well, the difference between Tim Ballard is that Tim Ballard actually kidnapped people and bribed people. Like, I know people in the military who do not like, I know some people in the military who became civilian contractors, and they do not like Tim Ballard at all.
Tim Ballard, who wears U.S. Army hats when he's out on mission sometimes, and has never served one day in the U.S. Armed Forces.
Yeah, I get it. So what it was because like he was Department of Homeland Security, and that's why he's former Department of Homeland Security, and that's why he was able to like, I think in many ways bamboozle people.
Yes, he's a con man.
Well, he's a con man, but you have to think about it too. It's like when he goes to countries like Brazil, Peru, the Philippines. You've been to Peru, right? Like if
Yes.
So people in the audience who don't know, we both have been to Peru. Beautiful place. If I, as a white man, go to Peru and say, I worked at Wells Fargo, Joe will back me up on this. As a white man who say I worked at Wells Fargo, it's internationally known, manages $6 trillion in assets. People will be begging me to work for them.
Right.
They will bend over backwards for me to work there.
Yeah.
And Tim Ballard went to countries with, trafficking problems and just poor policing systems. And it's like, I was a part of the U.S. Homeland Department of Security. Here's some papers. Well,
Right.
Of course you're going to believe. Of course those people will believe him. They're not going to question that.
And there's abundant reason to believe that Tim Ballard would come into those countries and have a private meeting with somebody high up in their security forces and make sure that a billionaire from the United States or somebody, with deep pockets in the United States was also at that meeting or had representation in that meeting. And
and I mean, like, people in like countries, like I think he operated in Peru, didn't he?
I don't know of any operations. He had operations in Argentina recently.
Argentina. Okay, yeah.
And then Colombia.
But I mean, like,
was
it was Colombia I was thinking of. Yeah. But like, of course he's gonna, like, politicians and just everyday people are going to implicitly trust him because he worked for the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. government, and he's got Americans who are very wealthy that are supporting him. So who's going to stand in his way?
Right. I mean,
nobody's going to stand in his way.
The interesting thing right now is that basically the guy they call the Argentine Trump is the guy who's now trying to expose him in Argentina and is trying to distance them from each other in Argentina after they were photographed together and connected together at CPAC. Now these meetings at CPAC, I mean, while in the United States, apparently, it's a great booster for your reputation to have gone to CPAC and made all these connections. Out in the larger world, it just means that there's scandal that's going to follow you somewhere. It means that you're on somebody's list who is a little too connected to something dangerous to politicians. And so, right now, to be associated with the United States and Argentina is actually quite the different thing. That's actually turned quite the corner. Is that they're like, well, the Americans are always ripping us off. They're desperate to rip us off.
Yeah,
So,
that's happened. That's actually occurring in India somewhat, not nearly as much, because India is very friendly relations with the United States, right? But like, because Trump snubbed, Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, on several occasions, and threatened tariffs on them and sanctions for buying diesel from Russia, but not doing the same to European countries, right? You know what I mean? That's kind of left a bitter taste in their mouths, and now it's like people haven't gotten to that stage yet in India, like in Argentina, where like everything American is bad. It's more like, okay, you're an American, you're here. Do you support the Trump administration? No? Okay, you're fine. Right? You're probably a refugee, if anything. But it's still generally very friendly. But now it's gone from like very friendly relations to more kind of like, oh, okay, like raised eyebrows, thoughts in the back of the head.
Right. Are you just a racist just coming in to colonize our country?
Well, I wouldn't say it's like that. I would say it's more of like, what's your purpose here? And I think a lot more countries now are asking that very basic question of like, oh, what are you doing here? It's not like malicious. It's not, intended to cause harm. But now people that America had close military and political ties with, or India, now they're going, now instead of looking at American being welcoming, now they're welcoming, and now they're very curious as to why you're there. Right?
How did you now that you're in Mongolia? Because like you said, you were seriously considering India. I don't know if you're still thinking about that. And but I don't think you're working in finance in Mongolia, or
No, I'm just doing full time, like my own thing. I'm building my content creation business. I'm doing other things. I'm building kind of more spiritual lines of work. I'm working on setting up. Um, but yeah, no, I'm not in finance at this time. I've been debating on getting into it. But of course, I have to learn like like the MSC, the Mongolian Stock Exchange, and like the banking systems here.
You
'Cause I have
strike
a
me as
very
the guy who would do really well with cryptocurrency. Are you into cryptocurrency?
Not at this time, just because I'm focusing on grounding myself because I have a lot of work to do, and that's part of the blessing and the challenge of being on Mongolia. Is it's a very very spiritual vibe here. There's a lot of history here with that, and things that you can ignore about yourself in America: harmful thought patterns, self sabotage, manipulation, things that people do naturally and don't think about in America. Here in Mongolia, because it's just so fast paced. Here in Mongolia, I'm like actually realizing that, so I want to adjust that first before I really get into like investing in stock trading and crypto and things like that.
No, smart.
Yeah.
So the spiritual side of this is really developing for you. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that
Now
was a
you
big
were going
part
to
of
ask
your.
something about being in Mongolia.
Yeah, so I was asking. Well, primarily I was asking, um, are you enjoying being in Mongolia as opposed to being in India, and do you feel like there's opportunities in Mongolia for someone like you, whether that's in your spiritual work or in
Yeah.
finance or whatever, that outpace and that draw you more to Mongolia than to India?
So, I mean, it's kind of a mixture of both, but I mean, my family is here. Um, and I really feel that Mongolia is my home. Um, so yeah, for this foreseeable future, I'm not planning on leaving. This is my home. When it comes to opportunities, I feel like there definitely are. I also definitely feel like there's a lot of self improvement I need to do before I like go full blown into those opportunities, because I've done some very, very, very basic looking at things, right? So like, how does QPay work here, which is a QR code, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
like you can pay with cash, you can pay with card, or you pay with your phone, and it basically links your bank account to like your phone camera, and you scan the QR code, and then the money goes from your account to the point of sale. I'm also vaguely familiar with some of the banks like Golompt Bank, Con Bank, and there's some others, but it's very much on a basic level. I don't have a bank account yet because we're waiting for the F1 visa paperwork to get approved. But I do feel like once I get grounded and do a lot of healing, then yeah, if I were to consider finance, I could do very well here. Spiritual work also definitely. Mongolia is a very spiritual country, and the dynamics is very different than the U.S. Right? So, like in America, you have atheists, right? You have atheists, and as many of you know, in America, atheists. Not all atheists. I do have to quantify this because you know you're
Go
one of
for
you know, yeah, but
it.
there are a lot of atheists who hate religion and hate religious people and want to see it destroyed in
Yeah,
America.
yeah,
Now in Mongolia, because Tibetan Buddhism and just the cultural history people take great pride in. I think it's like statistically 40-ish% of all of Mongolians just have no religion, right? They're atheist in a way.
yeah.
But
Nuns,
the
as they're
yeah,
calling. Yeah,
but there's a lot more like atheists or seculars, as they're generally known here, seculars. Um, they don't hate religion. They don't. There's a healthy respect for it.
yeah,
Um, And I think the difference is because when you look at the histories of America and Mongolia, um, like Buddhism and the general cultural history is, very, it just is what it is. It's there, right? And people
Right.
participate in it. In America, religion has been used to oppress, deny people's rights, slavery, segregation, Japanese internment camps in World War II. You have the Trail of Tears. So you have this really, really bloody history in America of religion, and you have legislated morality in America where people make laws based around religion, closing businesses on Sundays because Sunday is the Sabbath, for instance.
Hmm.
It doesn't exist here. It just doesn't. Yeah.
In spite of
Because
like the alcohol prohibitions and things like that, because
yeah, yeah, and I
there's a
mean there's
strong influence of Islam there, isn't there? I mean, isn't that the main?
I think not really. Not that
Oh,
I've
really?
seen.
Oh,
So like if you were to like, and I Googled this before I moved to Mongolia, but on paper, I think only like 2% of the population is Muslim. I think.
oh, really?
It's like, yeah, it's a
Oh,
very low percent.
hmm.
Um, Also, you have the different dynamics of um, population. America is predominantly Christian, but it also has a very, very diverse population. Mongolia is 99.999% Mongolian,
Right.
right? And one of the things, even we went to a family gathering recently, a family event. And one of the things that a family member was really pushing me towards, which I'm slowly doing, but because it's very difficult, learning Mongolian. Because in America, you can go anywhere and, you can speak English and you can get by, and there are all sorts of things, accommodations available. But in
Mhm.
Mongolia and in other countries, you really you do need to like learn Mongolian because there's a huge emphasis on like integrating and participating in the culture.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, so it's like religion in America is very different than I would say most parts of the world. There are exceptions. Like, I mean, you do have legislated morality in India, you do have religious laws in India, but that's more, I would say, understandable because, again, 99.99% of India is Indian people.
Right.
And the overwhelming majority of people are Hindu.
Correct.
But America's kind of got this really it has a very long history in America. There's a lot of good things about America. The people, for instance. I mean, every society has its flaws, but the people in America are very friendly, very open. There's there are a lot of opportunities in some ways in America, like, for freedom, but the government kind of like squashes that from what I've seen.
Well, now, I mean, always it's true.
Yeah,
It's always
always. Yeah,
it's always been there.
it's always there.
I,
It's just kind of been this weird pendulum flip where there's a saying I've heard so many times just in my travels, and that is, if you don't like the president of America, if you don't like what America's doing, just wait 4 years.
just wait, right?
Because I mean, you had what, Bob Dole, that was a conservative, and then Bill Clinton was elected, who's a Democrat. George Bush, it swung back to the conservatives with Bush, and then it swung back to Obama, swung back to Trump, swung back to Biden. Now America's on Trump again.
Yeah.
But yeah, religion in America is really kind of its own animal, and I would say like Christians in America are very, very fundamentally different than Christians just anywhere in the world. In my anecdotal personal experience, they're much more aggressive and ruthless and litigious.
Corrupt.
Yeah, and they try and push their stuff. I mean, like, you meet Christians in like England. Do you remember the comedian Eddie Izzard from England
Yeah.
a long time ago? Yeah, Eddie Izzard talked about Christianity in England and how the Church of England are Christians who just have no arms. It's like, hi, how are you? Like, they don't have arm movements. They're just very like whatever, and they just don't care.
Right.
It's like, oh, you
Susie.
believe?
But
Oh, yeah, you're a
what they
Muslim.
go
Oh,
by now.
well, I'm a Christian. Cool, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
They go by they or he or she pronouns, but now Susie is the
oh,
thing.
really? I have not followed them for years. I just remember seeing
Yeah,
them like back in
yeah, but
high school.
they had that great bit about Church of England kick or death, please. And I remember
Yeah,
that I would go
yeah,
hysterical over that bit.
for sure. Yeah,
Uh,
I do feel like Mongolia is my home. I mean, there are obviously challenges here. It's obviously very different. But you know, I don't foresee myself going to India or anywhere else. There's like kind of, for lack of a better term, a calling, and I hate saying that because of the Mormon background. But there's kind of a calling to, just like do my thing, make a difference, help others, um, and just kind of like live.
yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, like I've been having to heal my religious trauma around this idea of a calling as well, because like I've been talking to people lately about becoming luminaries for the Church of Korihor a lot, where they're like, so what exactly is it that drives you to it? And I said, and I've been saying, look, as much as I hate to say it, you have to feel like you're called to it, and if you feel like you're called to it, there's something that you can do. I can give you some direction. And so now it's like the new thing is, my new kick is, I got to be able to give people some direction, say, okay, let me give you the vision of where this is going, because like just letting people, just as telling people, look, you bring the vision to us and we'll carry it off, which I do still think is going to be a big part of the future of the Church of Korihor. I, I don't think it's going to be enough. It's like, okay, here's what we're looking at doing. We're going to be doing a lot of service with people who are unsheltered. We're going to be doing a lot of work with helping people to meditate. We're going to be doing a lot of work with autistic, particularly serving autistic children and people in neurodivergent spaces. And and so like these are the things that as I get into it and people start to pick up the vision of it, I'm hoping that more people are going to get that calling, because I think that part of the experience is real, the spiritual experience, and it's
Yeah,
important.
for sure. Yeah,
Hey,
I've
listen,
also
Devin, Dave, I've enjoyed this very much, but I do have, believe it or not, I have my employers texting me right now. They want me to get back to work. So
no, it's all good. Actually, we got food delivered and it's been sitting here for a bit, so I'm gonna go eat. It's
sounds
good.
good.
It's good chatting with you. Yeah, it's fun.
Likewise, I wish you'd drop in. We'll do more of these late night chats in the future. So please drop in the future. Okay,
Sounds good. You have a good one.
you too, buddy.
Bye.
Everybody, thanks to Diamond Dave for being here. All right, friends. I do have to get going here, but I do appreciate all of you. I do apologize if it was a little bit awkward today, because, yeah, I am parenting here full time. Um, Again, October 1st is when I'm hitting the road. We're going to start doing our mission. I'm going to start doing my overview mission, traveling cross country. I haven't talked to anybody yet seriously about heading west. I may wind up just heading straight east. I definitely am looking at this point at possible locations. So, any ideas on where we can do our street preaching while I'm en route to Virginia? It's looking like I'm going to have a lot to do once I'm out on the East Coast. So I may wind up just like heading out to the East Coast, and especially out into the South. I am hoping to avoid hurricane season, but at the same time, I have an open opportunity to go and visit our good friend Culch down in Florida, and also to go and visit with potentially visit with Stephen Pinecker if he still wants me to do that. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, make sure that you head over to korihor.org. Lots of improvements happening at korihor.org. And frankly, it's how people can mainly support us. It's been quite an interesting challenge to try and figure out exactly how we're going to finance all the major operations of the Church of Korhor. I mean, the more I commit to, is the more it's costing me personally. And not that I'm complaining about it, because again, this is the thing that I have always wanted. I have always wanted to do, and I feel like we are really making things happen here. I'm not trying to beg anybody to send more money to the Church of Korhor, but we definitely need to grow the message and get as many as people as possible just enjoying what we have to offer at korhor.org. I feel like if we can get more people to enjoy our offerings, namely the hymns, the sermons, and overview, we'll get more people who will sign up to engage in our community, engage with the missions, get and be part of our community for either the monthly contribution or the annual contribution. And then that all can only kick off if we can advertise. Frankly, at this point, the most of the year, my plan had been to invest a significant amount of my income into advertising for the Church of Korhor. I had not anticipated that my income would be significantly reduced and my expenses significantly increased. I'm sure that's a very familiar story to most people out there. So I will just stress, if you are able to support the Church of Korhor and our advertising budget, particularly, reach out to me. I'll give you the express instructions on what you can do for us and how you can help us. And I would greatly appreciate it, because frankly, a couple $100 a month would actually completely change the game for us. And so I got to figure out just how to work that much into the budget. So, of course, the simplest thing would be to get like 100 people doing the $2 a month contribution. It actually has to be more than that. But, we'll grow it as we can. And there are a few people out there, I'm sure, who have the resources, who can help us to kickstart this thing. Reach out to me, because, boy, I sure could use the help, even if it's only for a couple of months while we get things off the ground. But speaking of, let's have a closing hymn, because we love we love our hymns at the Church of Korhor. I was going to do a completely different one, but this one's just been so much fun. I really hope that you guys are doing well out there. Wish I had more time to stop and talk. Hyde, I definitely am planning on hitting Tulsa on my way through, by the way. I am planning to take some defense with me. So let's close off today with Mammon Tabernacle Choir. You guys know I love your faces. Thanks for being here.
Wait a minute! This Exmo's got something to say?
Oh, big surprise!
Oh, fuck off. Golden angels
Show the fruit
selling Jesus.
in an Armani suit.
Will a man rob God? Holy dividends turning prophets
Into Caesar